Okay, so I saw A Quiet Place, I want to say maybe like 6 months after it came out. Saw the sequel in the theaters, really enjoyed both. The first one had a lot of hype around it, so I think my expectations were like sky high, and I thought the movie was very good. I think probably a little bit more muted reception than most people because of the hype around it. The second one, enjoyed. Felt like the ending cribbed a little bit too much from the ending of the first movie, but still found the film enjoyable overall. I'll talk about why a little bit in detail when I review A Quiet Place Day One. Let's talk about it. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Before we get started, click on the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you know whenever I post a new piece of content. Okay, so Quiet Place Day One has its work cut out for it. What works about the first two movies is that despite being very sparse on dialogue, they are really good at telling a story without much language. Between the set design, the action set pieces, the aliens, and most importantly, the family relationship that is the emotional heartbeat of those movies, all of that just comes together and works really well in both films. This movie has to do that too. It has to also have a grounded and realistic story in the middle of all this chaos. I think it would have been very easy for the filmmakers to like go big or go home with like huge massive story about the downfall of the earth and like maybe a little backstory on where the aliens came from. The movie really skips all of that and instead gives us another very grounded personal story. This one involving two complete strangers in New York City, a late stage cancer patient named Samira, who is like in hospice care at the end of her life and really has kind of given up all hope, and this fairly youngish British law student played by Quinn. Samira is played by the always great Lupita Nyong'o. And their relationship is everything in this movie. It's the entire film. And so it has to work with those two characters. All the other stuff, the creatures, the meteors, what light backstory we get on the aliens, all of that is fine, but the movie falls apart without a coherent story at the center of it. So this movie has like 10 minutes of dialogue in the beginning and then next to nothing after that. It's pretty incredible what they continue to do with these films and really a testament to the story they tell. There's like very little dialogue. They managed to shrink the story down instead of blowing it up. It's just about two characters coming together and kind of finding their way in the face of what is impending doom. We know right off the bat that the main character's days are numbered, and that really like ups the stakes. You know, we really do care about what happens to her, even though we know her ultimate fate. And I think the movie is successful because of how those two characters come together and then develop over the course of like an hour and 40 minutes. So A Quiet Place Day One is a fantastic movie. It's a great prequel, and it's very, very smart in that it doesn't stray from the original formula too much. If there's a critique that I do have of the film, there's really only one critique I have, and that the ending is a little bit predictable. But I also had that kind of complaint about the second movie as well. We were like, oh, they're just doing the same thing from the first one. They're not doing the same thing here, but it is predictable based on the information I've already given you and the nature of the story. So I like this movie. I think it's one of the better action horror films of the last several years. It actually might be my favorite of all of these three movies, particularly because of the performances from Nyong'o and Quinn. So really like this film, and yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, found it helpful, I hope you would consider subscribing as I try to get to 500 subscriptions, and I'll see you next Wednesday at 9 a.m.